But this spaceship that we are on is like any other spaceship. It has a life support system, and that life support system is the biosphere. And it provides us everything we need to live on spaceship Earth. The food we eat, the energy that we need, the light, it regulates the temperature, it regulates the weather. And the biosphere is maintained by a crew of citizens on board spaceship Earth. And that crew are all of these myriad of species that share this planet with us. So we're all in it together that way. But many of the crew are more important than others. Some species are just plain passengers, not doing really too much, but having a great time, entertaining ourselves. Humans being probably in the first class section of that passenger ship right there. And we're taking up an awful lot of room in that first class section and using up a lot of resources, which means that we're contributing to the death and the extinction of really important crew members. Those species that run this planet, that provide the oxygen that we breathe, that provide the food that we eat, that regulate the weather. The most important, of course, being bacteria and plankton and algae, and then followed up by insects and worms and then fish. People get upset when I say that worms are more important than people, but on spaceship Earth, worms are more important than people because we need the worms to run the spaceship. We don't need people to do it. Passengers are just sitting around, but the worms are making it possible for us to be here. We need the worms, but they don't need us. We need bees, they don't need us. We need fish, they don't need us. So these species are far more important to us because without them, we wouldn't exist. So I think that it's really the responsibility of the passengers on spaceship Earth to watch out for the welfare of the crew members that are running this ship, and that is all of those species, those engineering species, which are maintaining this life support system.
Incredibly excited to have join us for Creative Mornings March, the theme of water, Alexander Taylor.
Thank you very much. The middle one, right? That's to move forward. Okay. Thank you very much. Wow. Well, let me just move on a slide. There we go. It's a privilege to be here and talk about what I'm going to go on to talk about over the next 20-25 minutes on behalf of PARLEY. PARLEY for the Oceans, as you've just seen, is all about network. It's bringing together creatives and leaders to help raise awareness of the beauty and the fragility of our oceans. Work in collaboration to try and help stop the destruction, essentially. And I'm, like I said, fortunate enough to be one of those collaborators. And I'll talk through a very special project, and a very special project for a very personal project, as it has come to be as well, and talk a little bit about that network and collaboration. I have a studio just down the road in Farringdon, and this is what it's all about. This is exactly like as we talked about network and people and coming together and somehow building that network and a global network. When Creative Mornings reached out to PARLEY to ask if they would like to be part of this event on World Water Day, then naturally they were able to reach out to their network, and being one of their ambassadors, I guess, they dropped me a note and said, would I mind to speak here, and that's why I'm here. Just going to switch hands because I'm right-handed, so it's a bit strange this way around. There we go. That's much better. Right. Relax. Okay, so designers have the power and responsibility to challenge existing models, to search out opportunity, and create more intelligent solutions for the planet. That's exactly my feeling, and I guess the studio manifesto now. We have, this every day we talk about this kind of idea of change. How can we change? How can we set the bar higher? How can we how can we put ourselves in positions where we can kind of be agitators, we can be the kind of the ones that are agents for change. We speak about that a lot. We create challenges for clients and people that we work with. Often that kind of, it's not an easy journey, but that's the way we sort of set it out. How come I come to work with PARLEY? I rewind the clock 11 years now, and I was invited to work on a project for Adidas through some of the furniture work that I was doing at the time. I worked with different furniture clients, different editors, big global manufacturers. One of them being Established & Sons, which started, and through that collaboration that I was doing there, I was invited to be part of a project with Adidas with 3 other industrial designers. We had a very clear brief, and that was to kind of present something that wasn't, present a technology of making shoes and footwear, performance footwear at the time, with a new technology which didn't exist within their like regular stream of go-to making facility for footwear. I proposed knitting. We were working on some knitted furniture at the time. We started to understand a little bit about it. This was kind of a flat knitting. There's all different kinds of knitting, but we were talking about flat knitting. We were looking at, we had first trip to Adidas in 2008, looking at the kind of their production line, seeing all the different parts and pieces, normally 15, 20 different parts and pieces cut, sewn, glued back together. So it was like, in first reaction, okay, let's strip that right back. Can we make it out of a single piece of material, single process? Start to be kind of much more efficient with that, and what would that end up being? So, we worked on that for 4 years. We launched the Olympic Games. We launched PrimeKnit. PrimeKnit at the time was, I was running around the halls of Adidas with the shoe that you just saw a couple of slides ago, and it's kind of quite something to convince them to try and change the way that they make shoes. But it was through hard work and determination and collaboration with all of those people, all of the developers at Adi, with the guys that were making the machines. We were working with, the athletes, with different people to try and prove the point. Now they make 22 million pairs of these using PrimeKnit technology a year, so it's been quite a success. Obviously, knitting changed the industry with regards to making footwear at the time. So we worked on other projects. We have a process of working which is almost kind of fast and slow in a way. We have a work stream of developing projects which are just ongoing. So we have different layers. So we're always kind of working and trying to sort of search out new ways and new facilities, new partners, new experts. You can't have too many gifted collaborators. So we kind of try and build that network, and we work with that network. And we're always trying to make models and prove principles. So one of those was, and as well a reaction to some of the problems that we're trying to solve with the knitting, we were looking into other technologies, into wovens, into stitching, into stitch technology, and one of them was fiber placement technology. We go to different fairs we go everywhere basically where we don't want to find any footwear designers, so we go to the different fairs that we don't see anyone, so we kind of, that's the way we kind of operate. And we found this technology which was more for kind of automotive aerospace, and it was a way of laying down filaments and fibers, coming from a different world. And we were starting to work with it. This was some kind of electrical cable, electrical wires, kind of technology you see when you're getting your car heated seat systems or steering wheels, that kind of thing. Just working with whatever that's kind of on the bobbins at the time, or with what they're working on. We don't have to engineer the material to begin with, but we kind of try and prove the principle. It's all about proving a point. It's about kind of coming up with an object or something that will convince someone that you can go to the next stage. It's always about, okay, let's do this step by step, but if we're going to change, then it's going to be big change, then we have to kind of convince people along the way. So the point of all of this was, or is, going to lead into the story that I'm going to tell now, which is the collaboration which came between PARLEY and Adidas. End of that as well is very, very important. The power of design to tell a story has come through this project. So, like I say, I had a working relationship with Adidas, and one evening, roughly 8 days before the climate change presentation at or summit, let's say, at the United Nations, Cyril Gooch, who's founder of PARLEY, and a couple of guys at Adidas gave me a call in the studio. We were just kind of packing up to go home one evening, and they said, he introduced himself. I didn't really know. I knew a little bit. I heard a bit and a little bit going on that there was this collaboration coming with these guys that would, who were going to sort of save the oceans, but really I didn't know very much about it. So Cyril came on the line, and they started to tell me a little bit about the plan, and the plan that they would like, or they were asking me at the time if I could make a pair of shoes for 8 days' time to be presented at the UN to announce the big collaboration between PARLEY and Adidas. Hey, and could you use that technology, that kind of car technology or that stitching technology that you're working on? Can we use that as well? And so we're like, well, yeah, we've only just really started that, and we're not 100% sure, but we'll give it a go. Why not? So we did. We took it on. We took the challenge. Cyril we went on to find a little bit more about the story, because the primary kind of material that we're going to use, really, which was the carrier for the story, was some gillnet material, some illegal gillnet, which had come from, again, a PARLEY collaborator or partner, it's Sea Shepherd organization. Captain Paul Watson, that you heard obviously speaking on the film, is a founder of Sea Shepherd organization, and they had some the Sea Shepherd boat in the top right hand side, and this is a legal fishing boat called Thunder. This boat, this was the end of the longest sea chase in history of its kind, whereby Sea Shepherd pursued the Thunder, and after it cut the gill nets, basically chased it for 110 days, and then they scuttled their fish to scuttled the boat to hide the evidence, and then all of the crew jumped into the water, and they were picked up by Sea Shepherd and successfully prosecuted. The net was left, however, but it was intercepted by another Sea Shepherd boat, and they were able to take that out. Here we go. So this is the gill net here, and this is the guys pulling it out. It took them 4.5-5 weeks pulling this net out by hand. This net saving everything they possibly could. Obviously, you've got kind of all of the catch that goes in there. This net, 72 kilometers long, 2 kilometers high, basically kills everything, doesn't go away. And the worst thing is when it's cut, because it becomes a ghost net. And then these nets are just sitting, this is off the west coast of Africa, the illegal poaching. So these nets, this is going on right now, it was going on, it has been going on, and these nets, they're just there, that's it, it's nylon 6. So it's like from here to Oxford, something like that. So, pure devastation. That's what it is. So these guys are the heroes that pulled out, they're kind of going through the nets there, and this is in La Rochelle. They had the nets on the port. And like I said, Cyril and the guys at Adidas were like saying, we can send you some of this material. We have our PARLEY network in place whereby we can introduce you to a green chemist. He'll help you process the material. Just tell us what you need. So we had some material sent to my studio, and we got the material also sent to Boston, where the chemist was working on the start of the project for us. But we had to basically ask him and give him the specifications of what we'd like him to do. What would he do with this net once he received it? So we had to kind of, like I say, this project is all about not only network and hard work, but also about timing. We'd also been, like I said, been working in this way with this technology, which had a natural kind of process of laying it down, and it started to build this kind of image. We kind of had to create a design. That design, the way that we work, I think it's really important that an object can tell a story as well. So the design kind of was a huge part of it. We didn't know then what a story it was going to be, so it's probably quite a good thing actually. We were just kind of working on instinct and reacting to the question, to the brief. So it started to kind of we kind of drew lines, and it was starting to obviously take on that intuitive visual and kind of wave visual, and it was starting to tell a little bit of the story. We could see then that it was kind of going to be something that was quite powerful. one of the team went and basically he moved to the facility just outside Stuttgart. He just kind of jumped on a plane the next day, so he was there. So he spent 6 days or 5 days there in Stuttgart where the machines were, because we'd managed to convince the guys who were making the machines before Adidas bought the machines to help make not only this project come to life, but also to work on developing the technology for us, because the end goal was that they would sell machines obviously to Adidas, so they were very happy to do that. We worked there with some more kind of electric cable or whatever it was that we could get our hands on that would somehow simulate the net material when it came through. This was a photograph from the lab in Boston, where they were kind of processing the material. They were starting to grind it down, and they actually made their own kind of extruder there as well. So they 3D printed the parts and they kind of hacked other parts and pieces and put it together. We only found this out afterwards when we went to visit them and talk about the project, and they sort of made this contraption to create an extrusion for the filament. So they'd taken a net. They were also using their kind of washing machines at home to clean it out and as well. So they'd taken it home, and they were, because it was full of lead, it was full of dead, unfortunate, rotting fish. So we don't kind of also had to take the smell out of it. So there was kind of all these elements that were going on, all the foreign particles that we're finding in there. A huge list of stuff that they were finding in this net that had been sent to them. But we just really wanted them to kind of process it for us. So they ground it down a couple of times into a powder, and then heat it up, put it through the extrusion machine, and created this kind of pretty crude monofilament that then we were able to get it sent back to Stuttgart. We were in London, obviously. Some of the team in Stuttgart. We had Cyril in New York. We had Adidas in Herzogenaurach, just outside Nuremberg. We had this guy in Boston helping us. So it's kind of, again, we were lucky with timings, because we were getting sort of to work through the night and day and what have you. It was kind of working quite well. We then had to apply that material. So there was a bit of a process to do that, and we really literally, this was like down to sort of day 5, where we'd kind of laying this down as onto the bed and trying to sort of keep our fingers crossed that it was going to work. Pressure was on, and it kind of did. We had, it wasn't a perfect silhouette of a shoe at that point. It was kind of something that was close, but it was really a sketch model, like we say, to prove a point. This was at the UN. So the night, obviously the day before, we sort of all finished it in Germany, and we had a meeting just before it was hand carried out to New York, and it was the conversation about, well, where do we put the stripes? Where do we put these 3 stripes? And we were like, well, you don't need 3 stripes on it. It's kind of like, you got CMO of Adidas going to stand on the stage and talk about it. It's got the Boost tooling on if you want something that relates to the brand, but it's like, it's an Adidas story in PARLEY, so let's leave the stripes off, and it's going to look nice without the stripes. And it kind of did, so it worked. So the shoes were taken out there. My best moment in design, I don't think I'll ever trump this moment in design, because actually just before Cyril went on stage, we had the shoes out back, and Sid Chakvarati, this chap here, he's the captain of the boat that pulled out the net. So they were the first ones to kind of intercept Thunder, and he spends 11.5 months on the ocean. Puts his life on the line, essentially, to save and protect and to regulate what's going on out there. And we pulled the shoes out of the bag. Cyril, by the way, on the other side, Cyril Gooch from PARLEY, and Eric Lidke in the middle. And Sid, he was in tears when we pulled out the shoe. So it was like a real moment, because it was like, that was the power of it. That was like, he'd been really right through it, and then we pulled out this object which was going to help tell his story, and that was so powerful. I mean, it was like that was a moment. Eric's on stage, and then obviously announced that the collaboration and the commitment, and at that moment sort of indicated that they were going to make millions of pairs of these shoes and millions of T-shirts, and that was it. Then we knew we had some more work to do after that moment. But I was there, lucky enough to be out there, and then I came back the next day, and then it's kind of on the, it's opening up the metro, and it's right there in front of us, this kind of shoe, and just the first image of that, and then obviously it kind of went viral. It wasn't the first time people have used nets or reprocessed nylon, different materials for making garments or footwear even. It's just the way that we did it in a way. It's a way that we kind of were able in Adidas and PARLEY, like I said, we're able to kind of put this kind of the statement of intent, this model on the stage and say that this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And that was the point. It wasn't like perfect. It was kind of it was an input. It was really a statement of intent. PARLEY have the manifesto to avoid, intercept, and redesign. So this was the kind of the next stage. We had they had the materials. There's enough material out there in the oceans. Now more than 8 million tons of plastic into the oceans every year, and that's, I guess, that's going and growing and growing and growing. They have also the means and the capacity to intercept. The interception is, so you stop before, obviously, the plastic gets to the ocean, is a big part of the collection of the material and the kind of responsibility. This is in the Maldives, in Male alone, the capital of the Maldives. It's kind of a relatively small capital. 300,000 bottles, plastic bottles every day are used. So they're kind of, I think I read something yesterday where it's like 10,000 bottles they're producing like 10,000 bottles every hour or something like that, the local plant. But 300,000 bottles a day that they're using in Male alone. So they all go, they're collected up, then they're shipped to the little island that sits just off Male, where they basically burn the plastic all day, 24/7. So it's just burning, because it's an island. They can't take the material anywhere else. They can't take the rubbish anywhere else. They have to dispose of it, but it does that. So it goes obviously up in the sky, it creates clouds, comes back and rains, and then back into the ocean, back in. That's only the stuff that's defined particles. Obviously, you're losing a lot of the plastic as well on the shipping from A to B and getting over to the island. So we were out in the Maldives on a PARLEY trip. One of the first kind of cleanup initiations there and initiatives, and you're seeing it firsthand. It's like until people say to you ocean plastic, then you start to realize the problem. So we had the PET, we had the nylon, then we had to kind of process it into materials that were obviously going to take us towards a performance product. That's what we did. So we kind of worked with the Adidas material developers and team there to kind of process it. There's also the systems that are being put in place. It's not like everything has to be done in the most responsible way. It's not kind of a case of just kind of pitching up and taking material off people. It's actually about network and logistics and getting in partnerships and having those collaborations to make it all happen as well. Once you do that from a business perspective, they start making the material. They're starting to actually identify all of the benefits of making the material. I mean, it's a big it's a big undertaking. It's obviously requires huge shift of systems. It requires huge investment. But whilst doing that, it enables you some transparency on what's going on and where you can make huge savings and you can change for the better, essentially. So you can start to restructure the whole kind of production line and the way that you make product, and you own the material. Once you're owning the material, then you're responsible and you can start to make a change, and then you start to shift the system and not buying the same factories that everyone else buys off and the same material suppliers and mills that everyone buys off that aren't designed really for anyone, they're just designed for everyone. So it's about kind of somehow getting into that. We learned that through Prime. It was like we never expected the shift in structure and system that was going to come from that, but we kind of opened the book. Once you start that project, then you start to understand how you can make change, how you can own change. We get Cyril obviously coming into this is one of my favorite photographs as well. This is Olga, who runs the kind of the PCT lab at Adidas, so kind of where all the prototypes and things like that are made. But this is how it changes lives, not only kind of outside, but within Adidas as well, and within kind of corporations, I guess. They take out all of single-use plastic. They take out all of no plastic bottles obviously allowed in there and all that sort of stuff. So no plastic bags now in the stores. And then obviously then it has Olga starts to get involved in the project. She goes and tells her family about it, and it's like kind of again it's somehow a distribution of connection to this project. Cyril comes and helps have a look on the making side of things. This was when we kind of took the last prototype and started to make it into. We made 50 pairs, which were Took us 8 months to get to, but it was kind of, like I say, it's a big R&D sort of undertaking to get to that alone. Then you build an Instagram campaign around that, you get people involved in that network and community to earn the pairs of shoes, so it's not kind of a case of getting it on these, on websites and or getting into stores and people first come, first serve scenario. It's actually people earning the shoes was a big part of the campaign as well. And they still sort of remain very special shoes in that respect. So, like you can see, it evolved obviously a little bit from a design perspective. We kept the essence of it and we kind of pushed it forward and we made these first 50 pairs, which had some impact from a business perspective, continues to have an impact. This was just in Forbes in October last year, and it starts to talk about the idea that Adidas might make $1 billion from it, from this collaboration. But the point is, for me, it's really only about that first pair of shoes. I mean, the first pair of shoes to tell a story, and then it's education, and then it's kind of hopefully, like I say, some move towards creating better product. For me, recycling, this is obviously recycling, upcycling material. I like to see it as a placeholder. It's not really, for me, the primary objective to recycle, because it's still plastic at the end of the day. It's still plastic. It still doesn't go away. Drop this, it's the idea is to re-engineer, like with the air strategy, the avoid, intercept, and redesign. The redesign aspect is to start re-engineering this material to a point where we have compostables and we have biodegradables that will somehow in time leave no trace. But that again is something to do with systems, and we've got to start working in that way. So that's much more of our kind of day-to-day at the moment, is as well with all the clients that we work is looking towards developing new materials, much far more intelligent materials that we can start to work with. So what else does PARLEY have going on at the moment? They have obviously their collaborations with Corona, and they have now as well international network set up whereby they're activating the 100 Island project and trying to protect 100 islands by 2020. Cleanup operations going on. You've seen the images of in the Dominican Republic of the kind of the catastrophe there, which happens, which is obviously a daily event, but it's also is kind of magnified in storm season, and you get this kind of just the litter and the trash on the beach. So there's now PARLEY on the ground, essentially kind of building networks and building people and building and encouraging leaders to kind of come out within communities to drive the cleanup operation essentially. They can obviously then now start to offer the networks of kind of bailing and somehow managing this material, and then obviously sorting it for use or upcycling or somehow some intelligent way of disposing with it. But this is on the ground. This is happening right now. They have teams all over the world that are kind of doing it, getting involved. And then also more locally, they have the working with Surfers Against Sewage. Here in the British Isles, in the UK, they're starting this Cool Water Island initiative where, again, they're still reaching out to network of individuals and communities to start the clear up here much closer to home. And that's the point. Everyone can get involved. You can kind of, you can register through their site, but you can also do your bit as well. Even if it's with or without PARLEY, you can go out there and you can also turn up on a weekend and go and collect the local from anywhere where you happen to be near water. Islands are particularly at risk, and it's certainly everyone's responsibility to get involved and to be part of the clear up. If we all do our little bit, then it becomes a big bit. So that's about it, I think. There we go.